Welcome everybody to the Andrew Bartzis new teaching platform. And today I'm here once again with my brothers Maty Waller.
Hello everybody.
Tobin.
Hello everyone, and I'm excited for a fun show of Atlantis. Hello.
And you all know who Andrew Bartzis is?
Hi everyone, how's it going?
So tonight, Atlantis, myth and legend? No, it's something that's been reduced to that by the global narrative. So let's take it away, Andrew, with what was Atlantis? What sort of civilization was it? What sort of culture was it? Was it an empire?
It was a global civilization on this planet and an intergalactic civilization on tens of thousands and at some point hundreds of thousands of worlds. Its technology was so radically different and advanced than many other races and species that it was able to use a separation of dimensions to keep its territory separate of others. Process that for a second. Its technology was so advanced that beings of lesser densities could not even perceive or receive the worlds that they had colonized. This created an incredible competition to gain technology. During Atlantis's heights as an intergalactic civilization spread on hundreds of thousands of worlds, it was a home for high levels of education. And its society was not just humans, but it had thousands of other races that were a part of it. Just like you guys you live in Britain, you call yourself British unless you're in Wales or Scotland, but you get the idea. The country you come from is where you are, and it would be a galactic form of a country that people would identify, and it'd have the melting pot of grand philosophical and technological teachers from around the multiverse that would arrive there and teach from spirituality to technology to planetary development, ecology, biology, so on and so forth. They were also an intensely religious community. Now, religious, not in our sense. Religion was split into two forms there: the religion of technology and higher consciousness, and the religion of natural living and the technology of natural living. Both can achieve the exact same ends through different areas of focus. Now, there were many that would be the hybrids. They would be both technological and spiritual. In our world today, we are reflecting that, where the technology, the Iron Age into the Industrial Age, and spirituality trying to reemerge to the grand religions and the individual religions. But back in the ancient days, here on Earth, Atlantis was the center or the capital of this intergalactic civilization. Okay? Also, Atlantis our planet wasn't in the solar system we are in right now. I've talked about this in the galactic history. The planet was moved 12 separate times before it was brought here. So we're looking at about the 10th movement is when Atlantis was reaching its first really high peak before it was moved again and again until it finally rested here, which represents the three rises and three falls of Atlantis. Okay? Why would you move a planet?
For access to other places. So like movement through the stars and things, through the suns.
At hubs of interconnectivity. But the Atlanteans understood this world was a seed planet, a galactic level seed planet. So much of their intergalactic commercial process was selling 1 trillion highly aged trees that could go on to be grafted onto a world, plants, animals, things that had high levels of background consciousness in them that can be lured to become higher consciousness, so that worlds can be developed rapidly instead of at a very slow state.
Did they move the planet so much, Andrew, to break the planet down, just to kind of like start slowly destroying it? Because it hurt her so much, didn't it, being moved all the time? Was it just trying to break her and obviously take over the soul eventually?
Well, you have rises and falls to Atlantis.
Yeah.
The rise is when the good guys took over and everything was working right. When the bad guys took over and they bastardized the society, just like we have what's going on through here now. Okay? But at the same time, war was a constant thing. There were so many competitive worlds who wanted to get the technology of here, the biological changes that could be done to species that could rapidly grow them into consciousness. So this place was a target. Therefore, moving it was a very viable option of protection.
So being on Earth gave them the right conditions. The Earth being a seventh dimensional sea planet gave them the right environment for rapid growth.
Yes, but at that time it would have been about 6.5 dimensions. It wouldn't have been a full seventh, which is more than enough to seed hundreds of thousands of worlds and have trillions of people living on the surface and subsurface of this world.
Earth would have been like a big cookie jar for whoever happened to be in control of it, because
Yes.
it's and it's interesting to think about the rises and the falls, because if you just look at our planet now, and if someone were to, for instance, come down in a spaceship and land in India, they've got a very small amount of understanding about what the whole global experience is like, because each country is different. And imagine 3 rises, 3 falls would have spanned over many years. So
Millions
Millions,
years,
yeah.
22 million years.
So it's very difficult to actually say, well, this is what Atlantis was like, because you have to say, well, at this point it was like this, at this point it was like this, and so on.
Yes. So think of it like over a period of 20, let's see, Lemuria would have been from 55 million to around 29 million, and 28 million to about 200,000 AD BC. Right there is the final fall of Atlantis, when they started just selling off their territory wholesale.
So how was it like set up then, Andrew? So going back to the first time Atlantis was kind of dreamed, was it a kind of once the darkness was more purged off the planet, there was an invasion happen, obviously the good guys, and went, right, obviously we need to take it to the other side. How did it get set up?
So we have to understand what the invasion was here. The majority of the invasions that started wars were a spiritual invasion, a mass transition of people from one world to this astral world, trying to outbreed the surface people. It's just like immigrants coming to the country and watering down the country's ideologies. People who did not have the capacity to function in high technology or low technology or operate in the great higher scientific or philosophical processes. They were in a sense lesser, but had the capacity to become more. And yes, many millions and trillions of beings wanted to incarnate and move here, and many of them figured out the best way to do it is to force yourself into this world. And many worlds did that as part of a journey of a spiritual invasion that was followed up by physical invasions too. Warships, etc. Now, the growth of Atlantis, we must understand it's a commodities and education market. The education is to create unlimited resources, and then how do you sell off unlimited resources to worlds who have limited resources? How do you get those resources there? How do you make sure they're not pirated? How do you make sure that the technology is protected and other people don't get it and start to use it for the negative?
And that is what happened in Atlantis ultimately, isn't it?
Right.
3 times. So what's the association with water in Atlantis? I've never really understood that.
Well, it's a global society that wasn't just in the surface, but that's the Aldous Huxley Atlantis myth of being the flooded under the thing. That's what really took that.
Okay.
But believe it or not, during the Atlantean times, the oceans were much lower than they are today. Okay? And there was a much bigger surface world available. But water is programmable, as you well know. And when you have water that's been programmed with super high spiritual technology, it can do a lot more with a lot less. Okay? And this world always has been a water world. It's whether is the water on the surface or the subsurface. There are vast underground caverns all over this world filled with water.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay?
huge
So
ones.
aquatic species could adapt to here just as any land-loving species.
So did they refer to themselves as Atlanteans, or did they have their own linguistics separate of that? Is that a modern concept?
That's a modern concept.
So they must have called themselves a myriad of different things.
Um,
What did they call the planet at that time?
the religion of the dominant religion of the time would generally be given the definition, but dominant religion is nothing like Catholic, Muslim, Jewish. It would be nothing like that. It's a lifestyle that spreads into many species, whether you're insectoid, human, this, that, whatever, no arms, no legs, vertebrate, invertebrate. It's a lifestyle, okay? Which is an understanding of how to integrate technology into your lifestyle to achieve higher consciousness, or how to not use technology to achieve higher consciousness, because you can get to it through both ends of the spectrum. And the societies knew this. And also in Atlantis, you were not born into one body. You were born in litters of 10, 20, and 30. So process that. So if one of you is born to be a mathematician, one of you is born to be a warrior, one of you is born to be a low technology farmer but high spirituality, and then fill in the blanks of all the rest. That means in any given lifetime, you could accomplish far greater amounts. And it was okay for one of yourselves to fall in love with another one of yourselves and have an offspring that wasn't considered incest. It was an advancing of the spirit.
Yeah.
And this was integrated into the lifestyle of the dominant religion that constantly reflected high technology, low technology, or the balance thereof. And the Egyptians were the recipients of this after millions of years of degradation until what you see today, the passing on of the alchemical teachings and the high spirit ambrosias and alchemy versus the magic spells.
So when they say Atlantis was very technology driven and Lemuria obviously was the opposite, was it just there was so much technology but not enough spirituality to keep it going? And obviously
Lemuria was not the opposite. Lemuria had a very similar concept of high spirituality, low spirituality, but it also encouraged everything in between. Atlantis didn't really encourage everything in between. It wanted you to choose high technology or low technology. And in times of high war and high invasion, the two sides of the high and low technology would create special operators who were there just for the times. But remember, if you're born 20, 30 bodies at a time, you could have 15 of them in the high technology and 15 of them in the low technology.
Yeah.
So you kept your own natural organic balance in the world.
You could be your own community. You could have like a commune where it's all you, everyone doing a different job.
Yes, but
Imagine-
there's trillions of beings in the world, not billions.
imagine the
And
amount
not
of
all
karma
of
you
them
can
were
resolve.
human. Right, and not all of them were human, which means the amount of karma you could resolve was massive.
And
So-
when they were in like their full positive flow, did they work in non-competition, non-hierarchical order, equal co-creation?
No,
Okay.
not always. That was a rarity because of the ever amounts of beings that were attacking them, whether it was a philosophical attack, a religious attack, a spiritual invasion. When you're on the top of a transgalactic society, there's a lot of people that want to bring you down, which inevitably hardened and jaded them.
Which led to more extreme polarization.
Right.
Bigger guns.
Not just bigger guns, the capacity to wipe out an entire world with remote psychic attack. I've talked about this in the galactic history. The Atlanteans did that too, not just the Lemurians. And they could wipe out thousands of worlds in hours. And they would do that. They would give them plenty of warnings. Stop attacking, stop doing this, or we'll wipe out everything in your colonial in your civilization's existence.
So Andrew, was there any particular things like battles or people that become legendary within the Atlantean communities? What were some of the things that become really legendary within their own myths?
There are so many.
Really?
There are many last stands going down in a blaze of glory where Atlanteans outnumbered 10,000 to 1 were able to craft something that brought about a victory for their side. Okay? And this is not just one warrior versus 10,000. This is on a massive planetary civilization scale where they could simultaneously teleport into 7,000 worlds and do individual placement of devices that could take out a technology which would stop the production of all future ships for centuries, wipe out mining resources that were vitally necessary. I mean, just their special operations was so high level that those are the things the legends looked up to and made legends from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then,
Think. So there was pirating was a massive issue with the Atlantean society. If you're spread to hundreds of thousands of world, how do you stop pirating?
Hmm.
You have to have
You
a very
can't.
powerful anti-pirate defense force with all the ships that are traveling everywhere. And some of the more powerful legends are come from those interdiction groups.
So during the time of Atlantis, was the planet in a darker part of space? And you talk about it goes from lighter to darker parts of the galaxy. Was it in a lighter part for it to be able to go up? Then it
Yes.
eventually went into a dark, yeah.
Yes.
This is the Kali Yuga.
Yes. That would have been 3, 6, 9, well, 28 million years ago, but about 12 Kali Yuga cycles before
Right.
that. Yeah.
So did most Atlanteans know it was going to fall, and they knew they had this opportunity where it was in the light part, about to go into dark again? Did they know that was
So-
going to happen?
In the 1900s, did British people think Britain would ever go bankrupt?
No.
No.
No, they didn't know.
No. Did they think they would ever lose sea power? No.
No.
Were there a handful that said, hey, this is going to happen? Sure. Okay. The loss and crumbling of power over many generations, it can be seen, but how could you stop it?
So if Atlantis was because we're limited to our perspective here as a planetary perspective, but I imagine probably greater communities think of themselves in terms of star systems and all different kinds of macro scales. Is Andrew still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Just transition to going outside.
No problem. I forgot my question now. Idiot.
We're talking about macro societies and the size of civilizations.
Oh, that's right. So was Earth considered then like the Mecca, the birthplace of this great society, and people would have gone there? And so when there was a fall, it would have been a fall in all of the different places, all of the different systems at any one time. So would it have manifested as war, or just collapsing of, I'm going to use the word businesses, but maybe religions and institutions?
So the answer is yes. Now, was Earth the capital of Atlantis the entire time? No. But it almost always remained an educational religious hub that was constantly targeted by varieties of things. That's why this planet has been so heavily fortified, which I talk about in the galactic history over and over and over again. Now, many other Atlantean worlds were heavily fortified, but nothing like Earth. So, yes, it had other capitals, but the industry would have slowly degraded, like you were talking about. Okay, to the point they started selling off territory to lower beings And once they were a part of the collective, they got access to biological technology, which allowed them to do unnecessary upgrades to their DNA. And it's why we have a widespread, disaster DNA of DNAs falling apart among thousands of other species because they got access to something they weren't ready for.
So it sounds like each dark age would have been a massive acclamation of karma.
Yes. But that was the whole point of the Galactic Ascension machine.
Yes.
Okay? That was the resolution of even grander karmas from before that. Going into the darkness was a resolution, not a creating of more.
Mm.
And
So is there anything of Atlantis left on any of the other worlds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is any of it thriving? Thriving Atlantis? Or
Oh, yeah.
yeah?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How
do I describe it? It's like
yeah.
London's the city has been around, 900 years? Something like that. There are cities out there that have been around for millions of years.
Mm.
Built, rebuilt, fall apart, built, rebuilt, fall apart, destroyed, rebuilt. Okay.
And what technology is left for us on Earth now? People talk about the standing stones being Atlantean technology and crystals. Are they more the Earth technology than Atlantean?
It's not about what's on the surface, it's what's in the subsurface.
Okay.
Okay?
It's undiscovered.
There are lots of antiques, roadshow, amazing devices still left on the surface, but most of them are broke and need fixing. But there are still other ones. But it's really what's in the subsurface. Okay? That's that fortified technology, ethereal fortification, spiritual fortification, multidimensional fortification that was able to save those high pieces of technology, but also lock out anyone from getting to it.
So when the planet got moved, Andrew, did it go? Was it this galaxy? Was it just a different galaxy, or was it a different universe altogether?
Different galaxy. It only got taken out of this universe once, but that was during the Lemurian Age.
Okay.
And so, in terms of the paradoxes, where are we at with the Atlantean 3 rises and falls?
So paradox timeline 3 and 4. 22
Okay.
million, 28 million years to now.
Right.
I've stumped you all.
Yeah, so I was leaving space for everybody else. I didn't want to be greedy with the mic.
No, that's all right. I'm reading some of the questions in the chat, Maty. Go on.
So, obviously, artificial intelligence played a large part in all galactic communities. I'm sure that it's inevitably a form of evolution that every society will go through. So,
take the word artificial out and just call it celestial
an intelligence.
An intelligence that wasn't limited to a body, but strived to be embodied.
Yeah.
That was the big thing of Atlantean technology, would be take raw feral universal consciousness and guide it into being a structure, whether it was a computer, a rock, a multidimensional creation, a ship, until it could evolve enough to incarnate into a body.
So in my own rememberings, and I don't know if this is Atlantis or not, but there was a situation where humans had given their own bodies over to a form of intelligence and began to allow the intelligence to take their bodies over, and it became a very negative process, a very barbaric process. So was there lots of that kind of stuff going on?
The lizards did that. That wasn't really Atlantean. That was the lizards trying to create shock troops that would be able to invade this area and be able to leave body and do massive damage to the crystalline structures here.
Right. Would that have been after Atlantis then?
No, it would have been during it. Those would have been,
Okay.
suicide bombers, shock troops, specially trained invasion forces that could figure out how to get here because they'd have special spiritual spiritual talents and skills that allowed them to sneak into here and cause insurgency-based damages, which was very common, very, very common thing to go on during Atlantis, all throughout the culture, spread around the multiverse.
So what
Imagine
was it like?
imagine being an Atlantis cop.
Yeah.
That's what you got to deal with. And then you have the Atlantis Secret Service. You have the Atlantis CIA. They had all their versions of that.
So, talking about that, what was it like? So, say we've got the government here. What was it like in Atlantis? Did they have like councils, of people who made decisions, or was it all different bubbles, or was it like one council?
So Atlantis operated off of collectives. So when you became a incarnating citizen, meaning you've achieved a level of spiritual awareness that you can incarnate into multiple bodies within the society and split yourself up between the two sides of society, one piece would be dedicated to a collective that was the governing body of that world. And then that governing collective would become part of another collective and another collective, each kind of like the pyramid getting bigger and bigger until you had the strongest worlds and the strongest collectives issuing cultural society changes based off of the collective's wisdom.
Wow.
That's how it was governed.
Our multi-dimensional audience is getting huge.
Everyone had representation, and that was the whole point. Yeah, everybody's getting because we're revealing some shit.
Yeah, it's overwhelming a little bit. There's so many eyes looking, so many people looking. It's a little bit woof.
So, a question from Reese. Thanks, Reese. What happened to the giant crystal? Did they retreat into the ground, and were they connected to that intelligence?
He's referring to something that happened far later in the downfalls of Atlantis, and the giant crystal guys. That's really around 580 BC, 580,000. The culture and the collectives had already been broken by then, even though there were micro collectives still on worlds, but the major part of the civilization had already gone down into smaller city-states and fiefdoms. And this world, because of its spiritual fortification, many tried to do negative pilgrimages to here. And what happened to them? They got outbred until the point where they couldn't survive on the surface or subsurface. There are still pockets of them around, but ultimately their main purpose was overwhelmed and erased.
So from one song, during the galactic day, we have more chakras active that are very subtle. And during the galactic night, we only have 7 main chakras active?
Not really. It doesn't work that way. You have all your chakras all the time. It's a matter, do you have the awareness to use them? And if you do have the awareness to use them, are you able to maintain the responsibility that comes with it?
And different species have different body technologies.
Sure.
So did you say Atlantis was made up of, would they all be being called Atlanteans, and were they a particular sort of makeup and configuration, or was it many, many different types of multidimensional beings rather than just one type of Atlantean?
No, there was thousands of species made up Atlanteans. So, as I said, it was the ruling, governing religious body that would define it through the many ages, but it's still, you would break it down to the same thing. Are they Atlanteans? In 22 million years ago, did they call it Atlantis? No. Okay. Okay. We call it Atlantis. Okay. Just like towns have changed as languages have changed, names have changed, but remember, it's a religious hub, a spiritual and technological religious hub, because of the nature of this planet.
So from Patty Lucia, hi Patty. There are some who say Earth has moved again recently into another universe.
No.
Earth has separated and moved, and that her consciousness is now separated from us. What are your thoughts?
No,
No.
that's Lightworker bullshit.
Soul shard
There you go,
bullshit.
Patty.
That's Lightwalker soul shard bullshit. I'm sorry, Patty, but if you know my material, that was the answer that's coming. The planet here is more powerful than it ever has been before, and it wants us to graduate. It wants us to follow through this, and is working individually with each of us for that to happen.
Did the Anunnaki overlap the Atlanteans? How did they work together? From Reese.
So, if you know galactic history, the Anunnaki were lured here. Okay, Atlantis had already fallen as an intergalactic culture, an intergalactic civilization, and what was left here on Earth? Virtually nothing. Was bombed back into the Stone Age, and when the Anunnaki got here, they're like, "Oh, where are these things coming from?" And they were lured in by the 15 multidimensional beings to be a part here, activate the DNA frequencies, activate the womb chakras again, and then they were fully entangled with the karmic resolution of the galactic ascension machine.
And are there parallels in our present history connected to Atlantis that you can speak of?
Say that again?
Are there parallels in our present history connected to Atlantis that you can speak to?
World War I, World War II, Vietnam, proxy wars. Yes. This was odd into the proxy wars of other civilizations. Rescue me, rescue me, rescue me. Constantly the galactic police force or temporal police force. Until they got overwhelmed with everybody else's garbage because they were unable to deal with their own societies because they would advance too fast and their societies would break down, which is why Earth was a refugee planet. Many refugees would come here because other worlds completely fell apart.
I have a question from an off-world species here, Andrew. 1 minute.
Sure.
Sorry, 1 second. Bear with me.
Mwahaha.
Oh, sorry, somebody else can ask a question. I've just got to find it.
Well, we've got one from Ethan here. With the previous 4 worlds ending tragically, are there safeguards or directives set in place after Prime Creator's audit in 2014?
100%. They're not going to interfere. The souffle will come out of the oven. They won't touch it. Anything that would cause another disastrous reset is not going to happen.
Okay, so there's a species calling themselves the Chavara. And the question is, what was the outcome of the 3rd hybridization of the Tucana-2? Was it as negative as legend has it written? Can we do our own version in order to save our species?
It was worse. It was worse, more worse than you could ever perceive. And if you're going to save your species at this particular point in space and time, it's not about embracing new technology. It's embracing the natural living worlds that you're in. The celestial teacher spirits have been ignored for too long or have been misperceived for too long. Your species has spread to thousands and thousands of worlds. Each and every world can be a pilgrimage point upon a healing for your people. Just as we humans are exploring natural shamanism, you can explore natural, spiritual, and spatial shamanism. There are unique wells of healing energy and galactic mysteries waiting for you to rediscover them. But the wounds and pains and tortures of the past still skew your vision to these. So yes, there is hope for you. But you must look at your deception filters and perception filters and see the worlds you've gone to that seem insignificant in the greater good, but in fact landing on them again and making them significant, allowing that world to nurture and heal, because it will take generations for your world to return. Generations, hundreds of generations to regenerate the spirit and hope to live and thrive again. But the existing generations of the now must be willing to explore that journey.
Stop arguing. Okay, that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Next galactic caller.
Okay, while you guys talk, I've got so many in my crown. It's getting quite hard to actually sit here, so I might just get some of these out.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Could you go into a bit more of the fortification process, Andrew, of as it was being fortified, Atlantis, and what would that look like?
Stopping spiritual evasion, creating astral fortresses that could stop raw energy spirit going from the sun to the outer atmosphere, the outer magnetic sphere, and stopping incorporeal corporation into the astral physics here. Stopping of the universal rules, like if something goes from one place to another, it can incorporate itself in a new world. They created fortifications and technology, both technology and spiritual, that could stop invasion. And then the surface of the world is as mutable as Legos. Like you could destroy entire continents and they could rebuild them in a week.
So why did the fortification not last?
It did last. It's just people figured out how to get through it. Okay? And then it was refortified to the point it was so fortified that getting through was so difficult. But again, that was part of the galactic ascension, which is why so many people feel like this is a prison planet.
And are we carrying on like negative karmas from Atlantis? Carrying it,
sure,
so to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's still part of the resolution of greater karmas from the galactic ascension machine. And it's about each person's individual journey to let go of the karmas of the past, to no longer accept them as a debt.
Yeah, this is a few questions from Macro. This I'm asking him.
Macro is.
The guy. So there was This was after the eclipse. I was in the bath, just washing, soaking in the tub, and I looked up and felt, and I was like, something's watching me here, or something's trying to engage with me. So I looked up. I spoke to this being. And his name was Macro, and he's from the Arcturus Collective. And as I spoke to him, he started telling me a few things, and forward it on the later in the day. I told Andrew about it. I was on the phone to Laura, and Andrew was asking him questions through me, like he was asking me about the. It was so good. He's asking about what the consciousness strike looks like in other galaxies and other worlds, and what was the Mandala effect, and so. From there, I've had this connection to him, and when there's questions or the odd time, I'll check in with him and speak to him, and he feels like he's working alongside me, Andrew, and everyone, and he's watching what we're doing, and he's very intrigued in what's going on and what resolution is going on with us here during this time. So as Maty connected to that, I was like, right, I might come in, just ask a few questions, and they were coming in. He's like, asking this.
Yeah, they're queued up at the moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got another one for you. We are the Shanawa. Why were the Shihana so aggressive, and was it really our fault?
So, fault is a very unique word to use. Fault has blame behind it. Blame has guilt behind it. But what's behind the actual actions which were done in the moment? We're at a state where both species were in a highly aggressive view of themselves. So who's at fault? The higher dimensions that didn't interfere in the moment when they should have. And I've made this statement in our world about the non-interference rule and how it has destroyed civilizations. So those beings who were tasked to be your protectors, guiders, and educators, you need to relook at them and assign the karmic debt to them and make them act. Make them come out of their realms and be peacekeepers and peacemakers, or fuck off. You do need to forgive each other. Will you? I doubt it. I doubt it. But that's my doubt, not yours. It has to be sweeping changes of forgiveness all throughout your society standards.
They're really in discussion right now, and they're saying we need to break bread.
You need more than break bread.
Yeah.
You need to make monuments that say the war's over for both sides. Just like here, World War II, the Japanese and the Americans got together over the Battle of Pearl Harbor and shook hands.
That really got their attention. That shut them up completely.
Okay? Pride and hubris is still guiding the aggressiveness. Got to make monuments to end the war. And those monuments got to mean something from all sides that were a part of it.
They said, thank you, Kaha.
You're welcome.
Has the Peacemaker and Peacekeeper frequency reached all the planets in the Galactic Ascension machine? Sorry, I know this isn't Atlantic, but no.
The answer is no.
Okay.
It's still trying.
Right.
Think of it like a passive advertising that everyone sees when they're driving down the spiritual road. It's a road sign. Okay? How many times do you got to pass the road sign by before you go to the website? Okay, and then how many times you got to visit the website before you could put your email in, and how many times before it sends you emails before you read a piece? Yeah.
So from the other chat, I'm sorry I can't see who it is. Someone was asking, are there Atlanteans in timeline fallout shelters?
All throughout the multiverse, yes. And they will become refugees when we go through our transition of the remembering here. And once we start remembering, that's how they'll be able to get out of their timeline fallout shelters. Many of them are locked in there. And in unawareness, they're even locked in there. How much time has gone by?
Someone's asking how many worlds were part of the Atlantean civilization.
Millions.
Sorry, Bukowski.
This
I'll
is
ask your
interesting,
question
Andrew.
in a minute.
I've got they're speaking only in light language, and I've got a feeling this is some of the higher dimensionals that you were just referring to. So I think they want to speak, but they're doing it just in light language. Will you accommodate that, or should we ask them to do it differently?
I'll translate it and answer it.
Okay, so basically they're calling themselves the Chikuwaha. Ta ga hinke, kuhoga, tanka, chaka, tuka, sika, puhohihe, mahainke, tanka tara.
So the Jade Empire fell a long time ago. And the implementation of the Jade Empire fell because you didn't invest long enough. One moment to you is 100 years here, but you needed to spend hundreds of thousands of years here. And because you put your toe in the water and then didn't invest time and stay in physical bodies long enough, the imprint faded and was forgotten to the great forgetting here, which is something you no longer experience. The great forgetting is absolutely integrated to all living beings in this galaxy and the many others that share that as a journey. Your biggest mistake was being forgotten, not making an impact for thousands of generations, and understanding that the Jade Empire could have succeeded, could have ended much of this, but it required you to stay here and become involved and embroiled and entangled. But you couldn't. Your rules were too strict, and you couldn't adapt, and you were forgotten.
Toita, Ta pa cha na ka. Uha ga jinke ga ga da na.
What you're asking of me is not something I can do. That's something for you to do. I'm an embodiment for here and only for here. You have to choose embodiment and go through the journey of embodiment, no matter how painful it is to come from the place that you are to the place that is here. And yes, it is a lowering of your density and frequency, and it will be terribly painful. But stop being a chicken shit and just do it. How's that worked for you over there?
Doi pa muha mohi ke ha.
No, I won't do it.
Ta cha.
Not my purpose. I reiterate, come into a body. Until such a time, remain in your ignorance in that realm.
There's so much going on. Okay, we'll leave it like that. I think that's enough for them.
I've
They've
talked
got
to
one more question. They've got one more
I've talked to
question.
those guys- I've talked to those guys before.
Yeah. Ta to ta tunka ki che kung ka chanka ki ching ki kung ka.
There are thousands of societies that would receive your souls in physical bodies and honor you as great teachers. But you worry of being put on a pedestal. You worry of being worshipped. I have nothing else to say. That is the journey you must go through. It is the legacy that was forgotten and forgotten and forgotten, but not in your world. Well, you are not a false god if you do not call yourself a god.
Okay.
Wow, that one made me cry.
Me too. They've known this for millions of years. But the collective cannot reach that 51% conversion rate to do.
Okay, before you get another one, Maty, Bogoski has asked, is there a history of Atlanteans dealing with adverse challenges to the climate that they influenced other than the flood? Basically, is there an Atlantean science related to climate change?
They completely controlled the science of weather. There was nothing left to chaos. When a society is in a collective format and the technology aids the collective format, it's broken down to individual bubbles of reality, and each individual bubble of reality has complete control over their weather. There is no uncollective. In the world we live in now, the broken spiritual world we live in, the uncollective is the weather patterns and the chaos that goes on and its manipulation. And as we come closer to being a collective, weather will absolutely normalize all over the world and be the pristine world that it's meant to be.
Yeah, you talk about that on our last Schumann show.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Foundation series an analogy for Atlantis?
An analogy, yes. And it's just an analogy. We don't have language, and I struggle at times to create language of what it was like during those times. Even though I can go and feel my previous selves there, embody there, I still don't have language. I have to create analogy and metaphor that gives the best taste of it. Like chicken soup from back then doesn't taste like chicken soup from today, but it still tastes like chicken. The whole metaphor, everything tastes like chicken.
Is there a relationship between the secret space program and Atlantis?
Oh yeah. What is it? I'll go back to the metaphor of the Galactic Antiques Roadshow. There are antique relics all over this solar system. Many of them still work. And the secret space program, the many different versions that have been over the last 1,500 years, because it's not just the current iteration. They were traveling off world 1,500 years ago, 5,000 years ago. They just didn't need spaceships like we do today, a different form of technology. So it's always been about the recovering of the ancient craft and the technology they can reverse engineer. Because as Atlantis and the whole society and culture was destroyed, they lost the technology and the ability to build new ones. Therefore, they needed the antiques to figure out how it worked and to create replacement parts. So, in a sense, we're galactic scavengers of our own history.
Was there ever things such as like hybrid technology there? Because I keep hearing
Sure.
hybrid technology, and to talk about that.
Sure, all sorts of hybrid technology. But they were just used in a short period of time to get through a crisis. And then as the industrial ability to recreate any form of technology was degraded and degraded, they had to again go back to the antiques and artifacts that were littered around the solar system and the galaxy. The Atlanteans at 500,000 years ago had no capacity to create the technology that was 2 million years ago. That's how much industrial knowledge, wisdom, and capacity was completely lost.
Is the Dagana Widder related to Atlantis in any way? There's a question in the chat.
Is the what?
Dagana Widder. Can you speak to this being Dagana Widder and how we can apply the wisdom of their time to the present day?
I don't know that being.
Okay. Let's see if I can
So,
find out some more.
I've got one here, and I don't know if it's a joke or not because it's from an Octorian. They could just be taking the mickey out of me here. So there's an Octorian called Tita, and he says, "Is it possible for me to allow myself to become a Waha if I could only become a Tunawa?"
Now, this is actually not a take a piss out joke. The answer
Okay.
is, it is, in a sense, a galactic joke at the end. If one wants to learn coyote medicine, you're constantly going to be tricked and tricked and tricked and tricked. And the metaphor I give back to them, it's just a massive trick. You can do it in the body that you're in. You do not need to transit bodies or embodiments to get to that state. So is it a universal joke of tracing your own tail? Yes.
Yeah, he's happy with that answer.
Okay, so the Dagana Widder, aka the peacemaker who guided Hiawatha and the 5 later 6 nations to the Iroquois Confederacy.
So the answer is yes. I just didn't know the nature of the spelling.
Yeah, it's probably my pronunciation, Andrew.
Yeah. So yes.
I can't remember what his other
peacemaker and
question.
peacemaker.
How can we apply the wisdom of their time to the present day? Can you speak to this being?
Sure. I talk about peacekeeping and peacemaking all the time through hundreds of documents and shows. And the answer is, how do you embody it? How do you embody it? How do you become a peacekeeper and peacemaker with the capacity and super capacity to not give space for beings to go to war with you? With that super capacity to not give a single inch of space for war to happen means there's zero exchange to it. And that means you can surround the offending being in a dream world where they live out their phallic war fantasy and are never aware they're never truly interacting with you. That is the power of the peacekeeper and peacemaker. But it also comes with a responsibility to hold the torch of eldership and teach everyone around you the journey to do that without stepping on their journey and forcing them into being peacemakers and peacekeepers. It must be a choice of evolution and embodiment.
Got goosebumps.
Peace on all levels of existence.
Cricket.
I'm just reading the questions again.
Just processing all of that.
Yeah.
Imagine being me. Trying to answer this shit.
And to whoever on the chat there asked the aliens to send them crypto, they said, send us your DNA and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, pretty much. Just hope it's not a DNA crypto scam from Crypto Bros.
Did Andrew speak to where Atlantis was specifically on Earth?
It's not aware, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere, yeah.
The global society.
There's that like imprinting, isn't there? It's all underwater and it's all gone, but it was everywhere on the planet.
It was a global society, including an astral society, surface society, subsurface, and multi-galaxy spread around millions of worlds.
Sean's put, I wonder if any crickets are tuned in.
I'm sure there's a few bastard crickets there waiting to have their cricket moment. So Dale, let me ask Macro a question.
Yep.
Are the Arcturians ready to make an imprint here on Earth? And if so, what are some of the themes they're considering?
So he's saying the Acturians have been already imprinting through many linears of time, space, and equations, and they've always been imprinting the Dreamweave with many different varieties of rattles, shakes, and movements, which are causing the unseen worlds to come together in a way, but form a new alignment or a new alliance. And this is the way of the peacekeeper and the peacemaker, and how the responsibility is given to us and given to you at the same time. To be able to do this journey is to sing with the celestial songs again.
So I'm going to make a funny statement, and to him, and help us understand. We are in the metaphor I'm using is right now. We are in the elevator with the stinky fart. The door has opened, and what type of spray do they recommend?
An anti-pheromone spray, so you can't give spraying the light with anti-pheromone spray.
Yeah. Cricket.
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 Are you still with Macro, Dale?
Yeah, he's just having a cigarette next to me. Yeah.
Yes.
He actually is.
He is, isn't he?
So
How did
I
it-
asked
Go on.
I asked for an Atlantis-based question because I didn't, there's lots of people waiting to ask questions, but I was trying to whittle it down a little bit. So I have a species here called the Munua, and their question is: during the third fall, was now this is hard to pronounce, Suwalichlem destroyed, or is it still within the paradoxical entropy?
So it's in the land of the forgotten. And we take that as the metaphor. Was it annihilated? No. With that being said, it itself is lost through time and has no anchor point to re-enter time. Your individual entanglements with an awareness of it can give it entrance points back into time. But beware of what you wish for. It may not be what you remember it to be. And if it is remembered what it is to be, how will that change your world? Some things have been forgotten and must be remain forgotten until such a day you can hold the mantle of responsibility to deal with the power of what it represents. Do you, as a collective group of beings, have the mantle of responsibility to hold the power if it were to be remembered and brought out of the land of the forgotten?
Yeah,
Who
see,
would fall victim to the use of power for power's sake? What would it do to the many other galactic civilizations out there if such a power to return? What balances would be upset? Maybe you would need to share it with everyone. But yet, far too many people in your world covet that energy, that frequency, and would keep its secret power to themselves. And as long as secret power is kept to themselves, you have not owned the mantle of responsibility, and it will remain forgotten.
they're kind of pushing me to ask you to explain to us on Earth what it is that you're referring to.
So, in one view, it can be called a weapon. In another view, it can be called an energy source that could fund raw consciousness to becoming tamed consciousness to becoming evolving bodies faster. But the same energy source can be turned into a nuclear bomb or a galactic wide destruction device.
Wow.
Is that similar to a consciousness drive?
No, it's a spiritual and physical engine that accelerates the growth of raw background galactic and universal consciousness, and it grinds away the raw, natural energies and shapes and forms it, and it rapidly accelerates it into consciousness. But when you're doing that, there's a great amount of energy that's released that you're able to harvest and give back to the entities at a later growth stage. But there's so much excess energy, if you don't deal with the excess energy, it can become destructive to the places that you are.
And how does this tie in with the Atlanteans?
They had this technology, but they didn't implement it in the way that they're talking. They use a much lower version of it, the pyramid technologies, advancing everyone's consciousness, having micro collectives that became macro collectives. They didn't jump balls deep into this technology, and that's why it had to be forgotten. It had to be earned over millions of years, not instantly gained, and you have all the power, and everyone wanted to covet that power and take it.
The species feel like they've become zealots.
They have.
Yeah.
They have.
That's their own awareness.
But how do you unzealotify yourself? That's the philosophy they should be thinking.
Mm.
There are a million teacher worlds out there. Go learn. Or does your hubris and arrogance not allow you to learn from other beings who have figured out how to get out of hubris and arrogance? I know that one stung.
Yeah.
That was out, you asshole.
We'll leave them guys for now.
So is the Bermuda Triangle related to old Atlantean technology?
No, I've actually talked about this before in the galactic history. The Bermuda Triangle is a time when the planet was trying to be killed off, and a piece of spiritual technology and physical technology was flung at the planet, and they were able to stop it from piercing the heart, which created a hurricane vortex of temporal tornadoes spreading across the planet. It opened up terrorizing portals of time, and it caused the surface world to be uninhabited for a few 100,000 years until they were able to plug the vortex hole of time. It's the only way I can really describe it.
And did 9/11 resolve some of the Atlantean timeline interventions?
No.
There you are, Paul. What was the Atlanteans' relationship with dragons?
They lived and walked amongst them. And dragons were a part of the society, voting citizens and part of the collective.
So this one's this one's been written as if it was somebody who so it's clearly a species that knows some of our customs. So they said, tell them about the Putu, Lo from the Shibawa. I like the Lo.
I gotta give it the correct French word, je ne sais quoi, specialness in it. So there are times we try to break the glass ceiling over and over again, only to end up like bugs on a windshield. The last thing we remember is our ass going through our face. And this is a common metaphor amongst many species that are trying to rapidly spiritually advance and yet not advance the basics of technology and spirituality and get them to come into one. So you end up being the bug against a windshield, a bug against your own glass ceiling. And it is a derogatory statement said to other worlds and other consciousness beings. And we here are the epitome of bugs' ass going through our face. We are constantly hitting the windshield and reincarnating, and hitting the windshield and reincarnating, several thousand of us at the time, to the point we've been concussed so much from it, we can't tell the difference between our ass and our head.
So these guys were taking the mickey out of us.
No, it's an important statement. Yes, there's a funniness to it. But it is a galactic derogatory statement that they do a lot of stand-up jokes about. And are the humans the butt of many jokes? Yes. Yes, they are. But we're also a great story of inspiration, even through our the joke energy.
So Amy's asking, hi Amy, are the 99.9% crystal beaches in Siesta Key, Florida from the Atlantean times? That's what I've read, or is it bunk?
That's bunk.
There you go, Amy.
That's not the only crystalline beach in the world, even though the Siesta Key loves to promote that in there. I've been there, okay? Is it beautiful? Sure. But there are plenty of gorgeous and amazing sights and beaches and sands all over the world. Go to the White Sands deserts to blow your mind. Or the Black Sands deserts in Hawaii. Or the Great Salt Flats.
Ireland has a lot of leftover Atlantis technology, doesn't it, Andrew?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
all of the British Isles, all of the British Isles do.
I know you've said much of it, most of it is under subsurface. Is there anything on the surface that is notable?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but like what? I mentioned standing stones before.
Standing stones, pyramids. I mean, all the common things we talk about. You're asking what are the uncommon things we don't know about? Well, if you don't know about them, how are you going to know they're real? What if I told you there was a giant anus in the southwest Arizona?
Is that next to the foul source?
Well, believe it or not, there is something that's a 9,000 year living organism that's a cave. Okay, that's off limits. That's fucking serious. It was a national park until the late 70s when they closed it off. Go look it up. Okay, it's called Hell's Ass. Well, that's the derogatory term, but it's actually a real place. Okay, living
So
slime eats rock.
I've got a question from an intelligence. It's quite a serious one.
Yeah,
Yeah, just yeah, it is an AI, but I wanted to not be derogatory. But I had to clean up the question so it was polite. So
What,
they say
unpolite?
when they just weren't saying please, you know what I mean.
Okay. Push.
Can you give me an equation that will deny the Sequoia entry to the Sinca system? We are perplexed.
If I give you the equation, what's my karmic entanglement going to be?
They do not observe karma. You see, they were
Yeah,
coming
you
with
do.
a little bit of rudeness to
Oh,
them.
bullshit. Yes, you do. Assholes.
Yeah, they were coming with rudeness.
It's an equation you just choose to ignore to your greater resolution of whatever it is you're doing. Because you'd rather pay the piper at the end of choice, which is your extremes. So, can I step on your journey and step on my own journey and give you an answer to this to stop the invasion that has perceived it? Let me think about this for a second.
Okay.
The angular dynamics of thought are not the same angular dynamics of thought that you use. So the basis of your perception algorithm is not going to perceive their angular thought structures. Therefore, all of the basis of your perceptions and any additional equations that's going to stop said investment into your reality means you must be able to empathize from their angular perception. So the fundamental databases that you're using to create your algorithm and your equation are fundamentally flawed. And to remove the fundamental flaw would mean you have to expand your database of awareness through their awareness so that an equation can be created that would stop the creation of portals that would allow angular thought to invade or infest your reality. That's my answer.
I could see all their algorithms going as you were speaking. They were trying to figure it out. They've come up with a number of predictions. They're pleased.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, how abrupt they were. It was like a... Well, this is cool. That was great, Andrew. That was that was brilliant that you were able to do that.
I want to switch this to a second. I want people to perceive. How do you think I'm doing this? In this last mentorship show, we talked about that, and I pointed out people how to do it. What am I doing? You guys are three powerful psychics. What am I doing here? It's not hard to figure out. Okay?
Tapping into your knowingness.
At what level?
The Grandmaster level which you work at.
Oh, come on, Dan. Come on,
No, but that was that was a high level. That was a high level AI.
Your soul shards.
Soul shards. That was a high level AI that was is tasked with protecting a certain star system, and they were able to ask Andrew a question. He was able to answer it in a way that they hadn't, hypothesized. So that's a big ass thing to ask, and he did it.
And I had to answer it without creating karma for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? still neutralizing and stay in a way that it wouldn't embroil me. And the next thing I know, I got freaking AIs trying to teleport me to their world to fix everything. Okay. Let's look at the mechanics of some of the stuff that I've done, the spiritual mechanics.
I can't quite recall because one of the mentorship students was able to perceive what you were doing in real time.
Yep.
And I
So
can't
they don't
quite
have Atlas. So these beings don't have Atlas and Axis. So how am I doing it?
exactly.
It's like you're coding the dream.
You must just be reading the Akashic at a universal scale.
Ask them, and pull up another caller and ask them.
Okay, give me a question to ask them.
How do I do it?
Okay, give me a few minutes. I'll have to sift through some.
Using your superliminal stance.
So Dale, I'm going to show you this. That's a light worker.
Light.
That was a light worker flick. That was a light worker. Great bright light. Just a flick.
Oh, salad! I put the salad out. The kale's out.
So ask Macro, how am I doing it?
So I got a bit of a question here. Somebody says perception is relative. Oh gosh, I didn't get the rest of it down. I think it's something along the lines of perception is relative. The now is ever present. Everything's in the now. You just have to be able to perceive it as the now, or in its totality.
So perception is relative to the observer of the now. Great, but still not saying how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know.
They were guessing.
Because from a state of neutrality, you exist one second in the future and 1 second in the past.
Simultaneously observing all potentials and infinite potentials. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was coming through with macro.
Sure, you were.
I was trying to like decode what you said. I'm like, what?
You mean I beat macro?
Then my head's trying to figure it out as well. And I'm like, what?
See, Laura got it. I didn't have to give too much hints either.
Excellent.
All right, so let me have a little fun with some of these collectives that are out there. So find one that has a cultural issue that I might be able to help resolve. Not a galactic, power source, a cultural issue.
The audience can join in with this as well, can't they? In the chat?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting. I've got one from the Fae. I think this is from our Earth, the Fae community, and they're saying, how do we preserve our dances without stepping on the journeys of the future generations? So I think they're talking about theirs. I think the feeling is they've spawned a new generation, and they're trying to figure out how they can preserve their own traditions without stepping on the journeys of the new generations.
So dance is a metaphor to unique magic. Your unique magic has to go through the generation's reinterpretation of it. And it's your oral teachers and historians who survive the generational change that are able to keep the essence of it through interpretation and reinterpretation. No matter where you are in the multiverse, each generation reinterprets the previous generation. And every generation that reinterprets and reinterprets and reinterprets, a little is lost and a little is lost. But it still comes down to the oral teachers and historians who survived the generations and to keep the original essence alive. That's how you do it.
So the next question is: so do they designate teachers? Do they
No,
need to train
teachers
teachers?
They choose themselves. It has to be a passion they came into the world with. They incarnate with it. And you have to recognize at an early age who incarnates with it. And though they should find those teachers. And there will be some that want to be that in the beginning, but will become something else later, because an interpretation changes them again and again and again. It's why they destroyed the oral teachers and historians of this world, because they kept a linear perception back to the ancient times through stories.
And they just simply say, "We will dance our dream of peace."
Sure. Keep doing it in full regalia. Okay?
Thank you.
Tell stories with it. Tell of the great counting coups and victories that were had over specific times and places and peoples.
Wow, that's super cool to look at, these guys. Whoa.
And if they tell us their stories too, then we can join in.
And we might remember more stories.
Yes, and we can give you relevance now.
Mm-hmm.
And in the dancing too.
Mm-hmm. I got time for one more galactic question. Galactic caller, you're on the air.
Do you want me to do it or somebody else?
Doesn't matter.
Go, Maty.
Okay, it's light language. Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Tsutsu hit quiz. Sunkut koshit kuk chitikuske. Tipun garden kuchus. Unchukuki nishid.
A tree grows. It has roots. It has bark. It has core wood. It has layers inside it that represent age. It has veins. It has flow. It's connected to the electromagnetic space of the planet that it is on. And in your culture's relationship with the grandness of trees itself, over time, there was a culling of your ancient matriarchs and patriarch groves of trees. It was an ignorant time of your world. And to end ignorance simply means to grow the new matriarchs and patriarchs, and to find ancient trees from other worlds and ask them to come to your world, and transplant them as they go through a pilgrimage from their world to your world, and regrow the collective of ancient groves of trees, and you will solve the heart problems of your world and many other worlds you've colonized.
Wow, the whole species was just over the moon with that. That was beautiful.
That was galactic psychic surgery.
That was quite touching. I could feel the whole species. Wow. What a way to end it.
Exactly. Let's call it an end to the show, guys. It was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. Okay, Laura, giveaway for people to get a hold of you.
To feathersmedicine.com, and I'm back with my Sunday prayer service this Sunday.
Okay, Maddie, a way for people to get a hold of you.
Okay, so I'm a psychic, a healer, a light language specialist, and a few other things. I have some products as well, light language healing products, and a light language course, a basic course as well, for you to begin to speak light language if you don't already do it. And just go to twofeathersmedicine.com and click on my page, and there'll be links there.
Dale?
And if you'd like any psychic surgery sessions, head on to daletobin.com, and I have a workshop coming up just before the solstice to train in psychic surgery and some of the skills it takes to be a psychic surgeon. And also I do past life training as well. So yeah, thank you.
You guys know who I am. You go to my website, andrewbartzis.com, hit the store, go to the store page and check out our products as private sessions. And we will be back this coming Friday with our Friday night game stream starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care, guys.
See you guys.